Joe?
Thank you, Tricia. I want to thank you especially for having this wonderful gathering here as the regional vice chair for the Finger Lakes and pulling all of this wonderful gathering together. I want to thank the other chair people for coming out and the state committee people. It's great to be home, and I say that even though I'm, yes, downstate now and a resident of Harlem. I have roots in this area. My family homestead is Auburn in Cayuga County. My father grew up there with his family. I spent summers growing up there, and because of my father's, let's say, accomplishments, the football stadium, high school football stadium in Auburn is Holland Stadium in his honor. I still have family there. In Syracuse, I actually stayed with my brother and sister-in-law last night on my way up here, and I was reminded, coming over here, of great times in Wayne County, in Lyons. My father's best friend was Jack Hemingway, a great businessman and a great Republican in that town. So it's great to be back home. And I emphasize that because I do have a unique profile as a candidate for governor. I have the upstate roots, but I also have downstate visibility and networks. And you know, I illustrate that by just a quick story. I ran for state senate back in 1985. I was a young lawyer in Harlem, and the incumbent, a Democrat named Leon Bogues, died in office, and I got a call from the then Manhattan GOP chair, who was a state senator, Roy Goodman, who said, "Joe, we want you to run." And so I said, "Okay, I'll throw my hat." So I was a candidate, and I was out campaigning one day, passing out flyers. I was at a subway stop, and as I was passing out flyers, a panhandler came up next to me, and he had his bucket, and he was doing his own kind of solicitation. And he looked over at me, and as I was passing out my flyers, and you know, he says, you know, "What are you running for?" I said, "State Senate." He says, "What party are you running on?" I said, "I'm a Republican." And then he looked over at me, and he had his bucket and passed it over to me. He says, "Here, you need this more than I do." You're laughing, but that was my largest campaign contribution. My profile, because I have the downstate, I've been active as a lawyer, entrepreneur, as well as a minister in the Harlem area over the years. I'm the one gubernatorial candidate who can hold the upstate base, as well as draw that much needed vote down in New York City, move it in a positive direction that we need. But it goes beyond you know, profile. I have a proven track record. You know, I talked about what I've done downstate, but I've also been active politically. Yes, I ran for office, not only state senate, but also New York State Attorney General in 1994. And at the convention in May of 1994, I closed down my campaign in order to bring about party unity behind candidate Pataki in the ticket that year, and then served as co-chair of his campaign that year, helping the Republican ticket unseat Mario Cuomo. We can do the same thing to Andrew Cuomo this year. I also served in Albany as counsel to the Senate Housing Committee. This was back in the 80s when Warren Anderson was the majority leader of the Senate. And then in the 90s, I was Pataki's housing commissioner. So what I bring is an experience as a proven outsider, right? I am the one candidate who has that outsider's image and energy, and not somebody who doesn't understand Albany, because I've served both in the legislature as well as in the executive branch. And I think that combination of having that outsider image and energy and having that insider experience that is really going to draw the electorate in this campaign season. So a lot more that I could say about my background, but I'm really glad to be here, and I look forward to questions that you have and to your support. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joel Giambra. I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you this morning. Trish, thanks for your efforts in putting this together. All the other county chairs and state committee people. Obviously, this is a very important election for all of us. I am the great-grandson and grandson of Italian-American immigrants. My grandparents came here for the opportunity to work and the opportunity to be part of the American dream. I'm the son of a middleweight prize fighter. My dad, Joe Giambra, was a middleweight boxer. He had 96 professional fights and lost 11. I've had 13 professional political fights and won 11. I lost my first 2 elections. I ran for office for the first time. I was 21 years old in the city of Buffalo. It was a good run, came up short. I ran again the next year, and we lost by about 90 votes in a Democratic primary. But I proved my tenacity and my perseverance in running the 3rd time, and I was successful, and we had 11 straight victories after that. So I served as one of the youngest ever elected to the City Council in Buffalo. I became the City Controller, the Chief Financial Officer in Buffalo for 9 years. And in 1999, at the time, Republican Chairman Bob Davis had approached me to see if I would change parties and run as a Republican in Erie County. Now remember, Erie County is a 3.5 to 1 Democratic overlay. So I changed parties in 1999 because I believed that the Republican Party was the best place for me to articulate the need to reduce the size and cost of government. And the overlapping duplicative form of governance that we have all the way from Jamestown to Montauk is the same. And it's caused us to be one of the highest property taxes in the nation. Property taxes in New York State, local property taxes, are 45% higher than the national average. So I was on a crusade back at home to eliminate duplicity, redundancy, and cost. We were successful in getting some sewer districts to merge, some water districts to merge. We were very close in getting the City of Buffalo Police Department, the County Sheriff's Department to merge, but for a lot of reasons, it didn't happen. I now believe as governor that I will have the opportunity, if elected, to implement a new form of governance at the local level. And if we can cut property taxes, ladies and gentlemen, at the local level, we don't need all of these ridiculous failed public policy programs that this governor has initiated. John talked about the Syracuse problem. You all heard about the Buffalo Billion. It's been a huge failure. This was another one of Andrew Cuomo's knee-jerk reactions, like the SAFE Act, to a situation. And if you know the governor, like some of us do on the stage, he's a very political opportunist individual. It's all about him. His arrogance now has gotten to the point where it has to stop. I was driving up the thruway this morning and saw some of the $8 million thruway signs that were constructed, by the way, outside of this area by a contractor outside of New York State. And the governor and his people were told that you can't put these signs up. But because of his arrogance, they put the signs up. So now we've wasted $8 million and now the potential of a $14 million fine. That's the arrogance that has to stop. We need a governor who's willing to cross the aisle to get things done. I have a history, ladies and gentlemen, of being able to attract Democrat support. As I said, in 1999, I became a Republican, and I beat the Democratic incumbent in a 4-to-1 overlay. And I was reelected, and then Chris Collins took over. So we were able to bring Republican leadership back to Erie County after 12 years of Democratic leadership. So I have a proven ability to get votes across the aisle. I think this election is about electability. It's about who on the stage, because we're all fine gentlemen, you'll find as we go through this campaign. But the real question is, who can win? Now, I'm sure like most of you, I don't like to lose. All right, I had 11 straight victories, and I don't plan on losing the 12th attempt here. So what we're going to do here is present different ideas, a different message, and that's the message that's going to allow Republicans to win. If we use the same playbook that we've used for the last 12 years, for the last 3 election cycles, I suspect we're going to get the same result. As I said, coming in second, from my perspective, means you're the first to lose. So, I was born and raised in public housing. With your support, I'll have the chance to live in public housing for at least the next 4 years. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I want to point out, Chris Catt is doing such a great job with his signs. Tell how professional they are. So he was so proud that he printed them up professionally. I want to point that out. And I also wanted to mention that not only is he the timekeeper, not only is he the vice chair, he's also the chief of staff for Senator Helming. So just wanted to give him his props for that. Okay, now when the candidates came in, just so you know, if you found this on your chair, that's a gift from the Ontario County Republican Committee, because you're going to be going through these like crazy this year. So flag pin for everyone. We love our flags here in Ontario County. So